Hi there. Do you wake up every morning on a new food program and by 3 p.m. you have your face halfway into a bag of Oreos? You go to bed at night and you're frustrated and you think, I'm going to start again tomorrow or Monday or the next day. And it just keeps repeating. The cycle keeps repeating over and over. Do you go to bed at night hating yourself, beating yourself up and thinking, oh, if I only had enough willpower, and you want to start again the next morning? You think you need more willpower? Well, you might not need willpower at all. This might be something else. For years, I was so down on myself. Every morning I would wake up and go, okay, today I'm going to do it. And I just get so down on myself and so upset. I would work really hard, and every day I would just try and be good. Over and over, I was told I just needed to summon up enough willpower. This was about discipline. Just do it! Love yourself enough. You are worth it. You just aren't motivated. You don't care enough. Let me know when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Have you heard any of those before? This didn't help me. It annoyed me. It just shut me down and made me angry. It made me hate myself and think I was never going to accomplish it. I was white knuckling it. I was forcing myself to eat better, getting me depressed, and I wanted to just give up. In this video, I'm going to explain why white knuckling is never the answer. And I want to offer you some effective ways to get results. Ready? I'm Anna Goldsecker, and if you're new to my channel, please hit subscribe and you'll get notified when new videos come out. And if this video helps you in any way, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. It helps me spread the message. So at 14, I started gaining weight, and I tried for years to lose it. I tried pretty much any diet there is out there. So I consider myself an expert on diets and weight loss. I'm not some skinny girl that's just telling you what to do. After years of getting nowhere, I finally realized why buckling down and beating myself up weren't getting me the results that I was looking for, which was just to eat better. I was also looking to lose weight and stick to a plan. Eventually, I figured out that it wasn't about buckling down. It wasn't all in my head. It wasn't that I had lost motivation. It also wasn't about being an addict. I had to do an overview of my life and really figure out how this was going to work. If you don't have motivation and drive right now, please don't sweat it. Let's just work on getting you to a healthier program first. Let's work on getting you healthy, not skinny. And the first thing I want you to do is to start observing your body and your mood. I want you to observe everything. I want you to observe how your face looks in the morning. I want you to observe whether you have dark circles or not that day. Do your hands feel all tight? Is your stomach bloated? Do your rings move at all? I want you to start taking notice of when you're holding water, retaining water, when you're craving sweets, when you're hungry, when you're satisfied, when you want the Oreos, and when you could care less. I know, might not be often, but I bet that there are times when you want to stick to your plan. The most important thing here is to be a non-judgmental observer. In other words, when you're noticing all of these things, to not assign it a good or bad. For now, just look and see what your body's doing, how your body is reacting. One of the first things you want to determine is what your why is. In other words, why are you doing this? Why do you want to eat better? Why do you want to eat greens? Why do you want to drink more water? Figure out why you want to do that. And it has to be more than weight loss. Weight loss does not sustain anybody for very long. And the reason is because you start twisting the rules. You start looking at things different. So other than weight loss, I want you to really dig deep. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to eat better? Then I'm going to need you to get some things in place. I need you to have some good food, some good options in the house. I also need your kitchen to be in place. If your kitchen's a disaster, you're not going to want to go in there and prepare food. If other people are in the house and eat things that are not healthy, just separate them out. Make sure that you have a space for you. You're going to want to prepare the space and have the proper tools. Identify the people that are sabotagers and the people that are supporters. And may I suggest that you don't tell them what you're doing. In other words, this new journey becomes yours. It's an inside job. Don't tell them. Try to limit your meals with the sabotagers. I know that sometimes this is easier than other times, but at least if you have to eat with a sabotager, at least start becoming aware. Start to notice what your mood is. Start to notice if you're overeating. Start to notice if your teeth are clenched. So limit the time with them and start to notice what your body's doing and what your behavior is. How does it change when you're with a sabotager? And then don't compare yourself to any of the skinny little girls on social media. Turn that off. Compare yourself to yourself. Compare yourself to what you were the day before, or the week before, or the month before. Don't take somebody's success over years and compare your day-to-day journey to theirs. Start to notice the events that trigger you. Is it when you sit down to watch TV? Is it a ball game that you're watching your kids do? Is it having to meet with a teacher or at work? Start to notice, are there events, so outside schedules, that trigger this response in you? And for now, you're just going to notice them. Write it down if you want, but just see, where are the times that you don't feel like you need to overeat and the times when you do? One of the most important things I'm going to ask you to do is this. I want you to start a food journal. Now, most journals just have you write down the time and the food that you eat. But I want this to be a bit more complex. I want, for at least a week, for you on one side of the page to write down the time and what you've eaten. And then on the other side, any physical or emotional feelings that have come up. In other words, I woke up and I'm starving. I ate lunch, half an hour, I want to eat sweets. I'm really tired today. I'm sad today. I want you to write down your food and then your mood and any physical responses on the other side. Make sense? So remember, one of the keys here is to always be non-judgmental. The second you get to judgment and you start putting yourself down, other things start piling on top and other things come into play. You want to look at this really non-judgmentally, almost like a science, collecting data. The second you start to assign negativity to something, your eyes start shutting. The second you think, oh, this is bad, I'm doing something bad, you stop observing and you stop learning. So what I'm going to ask you to do is keep your eyes open and lean into it. Anytime you go into negative judgment, you're doing yourself a disservice. Haven't you done that enough already? It's really important that you see that this is not an opinion about your character. It's really important that you see that you're a good person and this has nothing to do with your character. Then I really want you to tune into your hunger. Okay? So if you put your hunger on a scale from 1 to 10, for a few days, I want you to write down in your journal what hunger level you're at when you eat. So are you eating when your hunger is a 2? I know that I was told that I needed to restrict and I needed to starve myself, but in actuality, that's what got me into more trouble. The more I starved myself, the more I dieted, the more I restricted, the more weight I gained, and nobody was telling me that. So what I want you to do is first look at what your hunger is throughout the day. I want you to see the difference between your choices when you eat, when your hunger level is at a 2 and when your hunger level is at a 9. I can assure you that when your hunger level is at a 9, the broccoli ain't looking good. And that is because the brain to function requires glucose. So at a hunger level 9, I'm going to want to get the quickest sugar possible to satisfy my brain. Nobody was telling me that. So of course I'm going to want Doritos when I'm starving and not broccoli. Does that make sense? Because the brain requires glucose. The brain will ask my body to get the most refined product it can because it turns to sugar the quickest. Has anybody told you that? Because nobody had told me that. I wish I had learned that sooner. So you want to make sure that your brain is satisfied and your body is satisfied. You're going to want to eat when your hunger level is quite low, at least to start with, because the second the hunger starts creeping up, the more of a chance you're going to want refined product and get yourself into trouble. Does that make sense? Okay. Then what you can do with all of this data in a food journal is see when the overeating comes, when the binges come, when the cravings come, when those waves of energy come, and when you have those energy dips. And I want you to see if there's any similarities. Can you correlate it to anything that's going on? So nobody told me this, but this was the way I finally achieved success. I looked at what meal satisfied me the most, what my body needed. So I couldn't read this in any book. Nobody was going to give me a program that had this. I had to see for myself what was going on. So when I first started and I did this, for example, I realized that for lunch, if I had tuna, I did one thing at 3 o'clock, and if I had chicken, I did another thing at 3 o'clock. So both of those are protein, right? But the tuna didn't satisfy me. So even though I wanted to have tuna, if I had tuna for lunch at 3 o'clock, I would need something sweet. Does that make sense? So for me, I tried to figure out what worked for me, right? Because protein isn't just protein and isn't just protein. What things do in my body are going to be totally different than what things do in your body. And it's all going to trigger cravings, appetite, satisfaction, and your goal is to feel that satisfaction all throughout the day. That satisfaction is what's going to keep you on point. That satisfaction is what's going to get you to your goals. Anytime you feel restricted, sure, you're going to be able to hold that for an hour, 2 hours, a day, 2 days, but eventually this is not about willpower. This is not about white knuckling. It's about feeling satisfied all the time, figuring out what works for your body. You aren't a horrible person if you binge. You don't have a lack of willpower. It's your body screaming for food. You want food. You are hungry, and that's okay. It's not a character judgment. Okay, now here's something that I also didn't read in a book, but I experienced it, and a lot of my friends have experienced it. Weight doesn't come off with that 1.5 pound per week thing. That doesn't really happen consistently over time. I've found with me, friends, clients, what happens is that the weight comes off in chunks. And most of the time, let's say 4 to 5 pounds come off, 2 pounds come back on, and then another 3 pounds come off, and 1 pound comes back on. So we're not machines, right? Our bodies aren't machines. It's not a perfect science. Calories in, calories out, exercise, all of that doesn't amount to perfect calorie counts and weight lost on the scale. There's so many other things in play. Water, retention of that water, working out, different foods. Sometimes we retain more than other days, and hormones, right? All of this stuff comes into play. So if my emotions are completely attached to those 2 pounds up, imagine what I'm going to eat, and there it all goes. Does that make sense? See what meals for you sustain you the longest. Try not to weigh yourself every day, especially at the beginning of this journey. Try and weigh yourself every 2 weeks, every month. You want to collect data, but the second you find judgment in that data, I want you to back off. All of this, again, needs to be with complete love and care. Sometimes you can't tell when there's weight loss, right? So fat that's been on your body for a while is actually called adipose fat. So that might take a bit longer to get off. So that's why this is so not about what happens on the scale. This is about you eating better, better, and better, and figuring out for you what the triggers are to go to that closet and get Oreos. Cravings happen because you are hungry, not crazy. This has nothing to do with willpower. A craving, a hunger, an energy dip all has to do with hormone triggers, which have to do with what you've just eaten. So you want to notice, take notes, and figure out for yourself what is going to work and what's not. So when I first started out, I used protein powder a lot. There's not magic in the protein powder. In other words, protein powder isn't going to automatically help you lose weight. But I used it for these sugar dips and cravings. So when I had a craving, I would put a teaspoon or 2 of protein powder in some water. Now, you might not feel like having it, right? Because you want the sweets and the sugar. But what I suggest is, just like you would feed a baby or feed a child, give yourself that and see if that's what it is. I also suggest that when you wake up in the morning, within half an hour of you waking up, that you put a teaspoon of this protein powder in water. This is going to help you stabilize your blood sugar level and come from a kind of neutral place, especially if you've eaten sugar the night before and are waking up famished. Nobody can be successful when you wake up famished. So using this protein powder is an amazing hunger hack. Remember, keep the protein powder out so you get triggered in your mind that you have that before you can have the sugar. Make sense? Try to eliminate as much refined foods as you can. So refined foods generally have a label. If something has a label or is in a package, I want you to be suspect and dig deeper. Is this food a processed food? And the reason is because processed food will lead to more processed foods, and you're not going to give yourself any favors. Processed food usually has less fiber. And what satisfies you? Fiber. That's why processed food is never satisfying, no matter what it says on the package. I hope that you see that what you eat affects what you're later going to eat. One thing affects the other. It's all a domino. So the first step is to be observant. And then once you get a little bit of data about how your body works, you're going to try and implement these little changes and see if over time that gets you to where you want to be. So enough with the restriction, enough with trying to get willpower. You've been doing that for years and it's not working. It is time for something new. How does it sound? What have you been doing? What works for you and what doesn't work for you? And how does the idea of non-judgment work for you? Is that better than self-criticism? Is that better than white knuckling? I really want to hear from you. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and until the next time, mwah, ciao.